When was the last time you felt like the world was responding to what you were thinking? Not as a metaphor, not as a motivational phrase painted on a mug, but truly, in the flesh, in facts, in that strange feeling that something invisible moves when you move, that something gives in when you insist from the right place, that something hardens, resists, completely shuts down when you carry inside that noise that never entirely goes away. I want you to hold on to that question. Don't answer it yet. Let it float, because this video is not about techniques. It's not about pretty visualizations or frequency tables or words that sell well on the internet. This video is about something much older, much more serious, and much more uncomfortable than all of that. It's about a knowledge that for centuries lived behind closed doors. A knowledge that certain people preferred did not reach your hands. Not because it was dangerous to them, but because it was dangerous to the control they exerted over you. And you have always suspected it. That suspicion that appears at 3 in the morning when the silence is too heavy and you wonder if all of this has a layer you cannot see, if there is something operating underneath what ordinary logic can touch, if the world you perceive is complete or if it is simply the version they have handed to you so that you don't ask too many questions. Today we are going to walk through that door. But first, I need you to do something. I need you to stop reading this video as if it were information. Because it isn't. It's a map. And maps are not read. They are traveled. It starts here, in the body. Before talking about energy fields, invisible matrices, subtle layers surrounding matter, I need you to drop your attention from your head to the center of your chest. Not metaphorically, literally. Bring your awareness there. Feel the heartbeat. Feel that warmth or that emptiness right behind the sternum. That thing that sometimes tightens for no apparent reason. That thing that opens when someone truly looks at you and shuts like a trap when someone lies to you, even if you don't know yet that they are lying. That place knows things your mind doesn't know yet. And now I am going to tell you something that is going to sound strange at first, and that in 30 minutes will not sound strange to you at all. Your energy field is not yours. Wait. Don't close the video. Listen to me. When I say it is not yours, I don't mean it belongs to someone else. I mean you are not controlling it. I mean something else is controlling it in your place, and that something has been operating without your permission since long before you had words to describe it. Before you had the awareness that there was something to control, before you knew you existed as an entity separate from the noise surrounding you. Here is the first secret that nobody utters out loud. The energy field is not a diffuse aura with pretty colors that clairvoyants describe. It is an information network. It is the human being's actual operating system. And like any operating system, it can be programmed. It can be interfered with. It can be hacked. And it can, if you learn to handle it with precision, be reconfigured from within. That reconfiguration is what this video is about. But before showing you how it's done, I need to show you what needs to be undone. Because that's where the real work lies. Not in acquiring power, but in seeing clearly what you are already doing without knowing it. Think of this as an image. Imagine an old house, big, with long hallways and rooms you haven't opened in years. That house is you. Not the you that smiles in photos. Not the you that knows how to speak politely in meetings. The complete you with all its rooms, including the ones that smell like dampness, including the ones that are locked from the inside, including the ones that have something on the floor you would recognize instantly if you turned on the light. Most people live only in the living room of that house. They limit themselves to that space. They decorate it, they tidy it up, they show it to guests, and they leave the rest in the dark. But the energy field doesn't understand decoration. It radiates everything in the house, including what is in the basements, including what is in the walls, including what you think you have buried deep enough so that it no longer emits a signal. It keeps emitting. That is what the world receives from you when you walk into a room. Not your words, not your clothes, not the story you tell about who you are. The field emits what is underneath all of that, and other people's fields detect it even if their conscious mind doesn't know how to translate it. That's why there are people who inspire trust in you for no logical reason. That's why there are others who make you uncomfortable even if they say exactly what you want to hear. That's why there are nights when you walk into a place and something tightens in the center of your chest before your head has processed anything. It is not magical intuition, it is field reading, and every human being does it. The difference is whether you recognize it or not. Now then, what is in the basements of your house? I am not going to give you a list of options as if this were a magazine quiz. I am going to point out something specific that most people have engraved in their field since childhood and that operates like a reversed magnet all their life if it is not intervened with. It is called the wound of origin. You don't have to have experienced it dramatically. There didn't have to be screaming or hits or visible abandonment. Sometimes the wound of origin is simply the gaze that was missing, the voice that didn't tell you that you were enough at the exact moment you needed it most. The decision that was made about you without asking you. The day you learned, without anyone explaining it to you, that to be loved you had to be something different from what you were. That day, something was engraved in the field. Not in the conscious memory, in something deeper. In the information network that you are before you are thought. And since that day, without exception, that pattern has been repeating itself in your relationships, in your decisions, in the invisible ceilings you reach and fail to reach, in the people you attract and those you push away, in the subtle sabotage that appears just when something good is about to solidify. Do you recognize it? It doesn't have to hurt to recognize it. It can hurt, of course. But it can also feel like that strange mix of relief and vertigo that arises when someone finally names something you had been noticing for years without being able to put into words. That is what needs to be intervened with first. And here comes something that most energy work systems overlook, or worse, distort with good intentions. You cannot control your field out of fear of the field itself. Repeat it mentally. You cannot control your field out of fear of what is in it. 90% of the techniques circulating out there function on the basis that what is in you is a problem to be solved, a darkness to be eliminated, a low frequency to be replaced by a more luminous one. And that, even if it sounds reasonable, is built upon a fundamental error that corrupts everything. Your shadow is not your enemy. Your shadow is your own energy that was rejected and has been asking for you to recognize it for decades. When you try to raise your frequency by covering up what is in the basements, you don't raise anything. You displace the weight, and the field keeps emitting exactly the same thing, only now with a layer of artificial light on top that makes it harder to detect, not less. That has a name in the oldest initiatory systems. It is called the mask of light. And it is more dangerous than the mask of shadow because it convinces the wearer that they have already done the work, that they have already healed, that they are already someone else, when in reality they have only learned to better present what they haven't touched. Have you met someone who constantly talks about high vibration, gratitude, unconditional love, and yet leaves a trail of destroyed relationships in their wake, of people who walked away confused, of situations that always end up the same, even if the scenarios change? There is the mask of light, operating with precision. True control of the field doesn't start from the top, it starts from the bottom. Go down to the basement. Turn on the light, not to judge what is there, to see it. Just to see it. With the same calmness with which you would turn on the light in a room you hadn't visited in a long time. What you see there doesn't define you. It is just information that has been waiting for your attention. And here something happens that conventional science still doesn't quite know how to explain, but that anyone who has worked with this recognizes immediately. The act of observing changes the observed. It's not a metaphor, it's mechanics. When you bring awareness towards something you have been avoiding, that something changes states. The energy that had been trapped in the pattern of rejection begins to move. Not because you have done anything special, but because awareness is, in itself, the most powerful instrument of transformation that exists, more than any ritual, more than any technique, more than any external tool. You are the instrument, but you have to learn to tune it. And that brings me to the core of this video, to the point where hidden knowledge stops being theory and becomes real practice. There are 3 levels in controlling the energy field. Not 4, not 7, 3, and they go in order. You cannot skip any, because each one is the condition for the next. The first is internal coherence. There is no powerful field without internal coherence, and internal coherence is not feeling good. It is not being at peace. It is not having mental clarity. It is something more precise than all of that. It is that what you think, what you feel, and what you do point in the same direction at the same time. When those 3 levels diverge, the field fragments. And a fragmented field not only cannot influence the environment, but it is also permeable to external interferences, to others' fields, to others' emotions that sneak into you without you realizing it, to collective narratives that inhabit you without you having chosen them. Internal coherence is not a permanent state that you reach and that's it. It is a practice, a constant calibration, several times a day, if necessary. Is what I am thinking right now coherent with what I feel? Is what I feel coherent with what I am going to do next? When the 3 layers converge, something in the field settles, it densifies. It acquires a quality that the people around you perceive even if they don't know exactly what they perceive. They call it presence, charisma, silent authority. It doesn't come from the outside, it comes from coherence. The second level is intentional direction. Once the field has coherence, it needs direction. And here lies one of the most frequent and costly mistakes in energy work. Intention is not a desire. Intention is not what you want to happen. Intention is the internal state you generate as if it had already happened. Stop here for a moment. Most people work with the field from lack, from the place of someone who desires something they do not have. And that internal state, that feeling of absence from which the intention is emitted, is exactly the frequency the field projects outward. Not the mental image of the goal, the emotional state of the one who desires and does not have. Do you see the problem? The field does not read your images. The field reads your state. The field radiates what you are in this moment, not what you want to be tomorrow. That is why there are people who have been visualizing abundance for years from a resonance of scarcity and do not understand why it doesn't work. It's not that the technique fails, it's that the technique is only the form. The state is the substance, and substance always wins. Real intentional direction consists of deliberately entering the emotional, physical, and mental state corresponding to that which you want to manifest, and holding it long enough for the field to adopt it as a reference, not as a fantasy, as a calibration point. That has very concrete implications. It means you cannot work with the field while you are in reactivity, while you are angry, scared, in survival mode. The field is in defensive mode and cannot project coherently outward. First, regulation, then direction. If this is stirring something in you, if you are feeling that something in you already knew all this, even if it hadn't put it into these words yet, I want to ask you to do something right now before continuing. There are people who reach this point in the video and continue passively, as if what they just heard were just more content. And there are people who feel that this is no coincidence, that the video found them, not the other way around. That there is a reason why the algorithm, among everything it could have shown you tonight, brought you exactly here. If you are the second type, prove it to yourself, not to me, to yourself. Hit the like button. It's not a button, It's an internal declaration that you are willing to go beyond what you already knew. Subscribe and turn on the bell, not to follow a channel, but to open a thread of continuity with yourself. Every video that reaches your screen from this channel is one more layer of the same map. And if you cut the thread now, the map remains incomplete. If there is someone in your life who has been looking for this for months without knowing what to call it, who feels there is something more but can't find the door, you are the bridge. Share the video, not because I need it, because there is someone on the other side of that gesture waiting for a sign without knowing they are waiting for it. And if you want what I cannot release on YouTube without filters, what is behind what I say here, the layers the algorithm doesn't allow, there is a closed space where I go deep without limits, where what I hint at here, I lay completely bare there. The link is in the description. Those who are already inside know what I am talking about. Now let's continue. The third level is the conscious expansion of the field. And here we enter the territory that most discomforts the rational mind. Not because it is irrational, but because it forces a review of some of the most basic assumptions about where the skin ends and where the world begins. Your energy field does not end at your physical surface. It extends. How much? The honest answer is that it depends on your level of coherence and the intensity of your internal state. A fragmented, reactive field, full of internal noise, barely has a presence beyond a few centimeters from the skin. A coherent field, charged with sustained intention, can fill a room. It can change the emotional temperature of a space. It can influence the decisions of people who don't even know you are thinking about them. That is not magic, that is physics. The physics that official science is still trying to measure with the tools it has, and that the oldest traditions on the planet described with precision without needing a laboratory or an equation. But there is something in the expansion of the field that almost no one mentions, and that is absolutely critical to understand. Expansion is not aggression, it is not invasion, it is not imposition. The field that expands with coherence does not push against another's field. It invites it. There is a fundamental difference between a field that projects from the fear of control, from the need to dominate, from the urgency for things to turn out the way one wants, and a field that simply is what it is, with such clarity and such depth that the surrounding fields naturally reorient themselves. One controls out of fear, the other influences through presence. And here is the mystery I have been wanting to reveal since the beginning of this video. Real control of the field looks nothing like what is called control in the ordinary world. In the ordinary world, controlling means grasping, manipulating variables, forcing outcomes, eliminating uncertainty, building an armor solid enough so that nothing surprises you. And that, which looks like power, is actually the most refined cage that exists. Because a being in constant tension of control cannot be present, and without presence, the field has no field. It is just noise. Real control of the field is closer to what happens with water that takes the shape of the container without losing its nature. It resembles the flame that the wind does not blow out because it knows how to move with it. It resembles the silence between two musical notes, that silence which is not emptiness, but the condition without which the next note would have no meaning. Real control is that capacity to be so completely present in each moment that the field responds to you before you have to do anything. Circumstances organize themselves, the right people appear, obstacles displace themselves not because you force them, but because something in the fabric of reality recognizes you. That can be learned. It is not learned by reading about it, it is learned by inhabiting it. And there are concrete steps to start inhabiting it. The first, create a daily anchor point. A moment, it can be just 5 minutes, in which you bring attention to the body, specifically to the center of the chest, and observe without judging what is there, without trying to change it, without adding a narrative, just watching, just being with what is there. That alone begins to undo the fragmentation of the field. The second, when you are going to make an important decision before deciding from your head, take the question to the field. Feel how option A resonates in the body, feel how option B resonates. Not the thought about those options, the physical resonance. The field knows before the mind, and if you learn to listen to it, you will rarely again make decisions that take you exactly where you did not want to go. The third, deliberately work with your state before entering any important situation. A difficult conversation, a meeting, an encounter that generates tension for you. Do not enter in reactivity. Enter from a state you have chosen. That is not repression, it is field architecture. You are deciding from which resonance you are going to inhabit that space, and that decision changes everything that happens afterward. The fourth, practice expanding the field in neutral spaces. When you are in a public place, without anyone noticing, experiment with taking your awareness beyond the body, as if you were gently expanding into the space around you, without tension, without effort, just as an exercise in expanded perception. Over time, you will begin to notice information from the environment that you previously overlooked. Tensions in the atmosphere, emotional states of people nearby, changes in the quality of the space before anything visible happens. The fifth and most important, learn to distinguish between what is yours and what belongs to others. This point deserves a pause. One of the most serious problems of having the field open without knowing how to handle it is permeability without discernment, absorbing others' states as if they were your own, carrying the emotional weight of environments, of people, of entire collectives. There are people who literally do not know when they are feeling something of their own and when they are simply being sponges for someone else's field. If you pass through an area with a lot of emotional baggage and arrive home exhausted without knowing why, that is not spiritual sensitivity, that is a field without borders. And a field without borders is not free, it is porous. And what is porous is not strong, it is vulnerable. The border of the field is not built with fear or with rejection or with emotional distance. It is built with a clear identity, with knowing who you are so deeply and so stably that what belongs to others does not find an empty space in you to fill. We return to the house. The well-inhabited house, with all its rooms known, with the basement visited and recognized, with the light turned on in every corner, that house does not need armored doors because there is no vacuum that the outside wants to fill. It is complete in itself. That completeness is the most potent protection that exists. And now we come to the point that is perhaps the most difficult to integrate. Everything you have heard up to here only works if you accept one thing that the ego resists with all its strength. You cannot control the field from the need for things to be different. The state of need, of urgency, of I have to change this or that, of I cannot bear reality being the way it is, that state is what seals the field hermetically, the one that turns it into a wall instead of an antenna. The most powerful field you can have does not arise from wanting to change reality. It arises from relating to it from a clarity so deep and so rooted that reality responds to you because you are not forcing it, but recognizing it, because you are so present that the fabric of what is can reorganize itself around your presence. That is called, in the oldest systems, the mastery of the witness, the one who observes without needing the observed to be different from what it is, the one who acts without clinging to the fruit of the action, the one who influences without controlling. It is not passivity, it is the most active form of existing there is. There is an image for this. Imagine a stone at the bottom of a river. The water flows around it. The stone does not fight against the water, it does not try to stop it or redirect it. And yet the water changes course because of the presence of the stone. Not because the stone demands it, but because the stone is completely what it is. Do you want that level of influence over your reality? Become the stone, in the deepest sense, the one who is so completely himself that the flow of events reorganizes itself around his presence. For that, you must have gone down to the basement. For that, you must have looked into the eyes of what is in the closed rooms. For that, you must have undone the mask of light and the mask of shadow until you are left with what is underneath both, which is simply what you are when nobody is watching and when there is no longer any role to play. That is the field without interferences. That is the pure signal, and when you emit a pure signal, you don't have to do anything else to influence the world. The world calibrates itself in relation to you as naturally as planets calibrate themselves in relation to the sun. Not because the sun commands them to do anything, but because the sun is what it is with an intensity that admits no ignorance. Now then, everything I have explained up to here is the structure, it is the map. But the map is not the territory, and there is a difference between having listened to this and having integrated it. Integration takes time. It takes practice, it takes mistakes, it takes moments when you will believe you understand it, and then life will put you in a situation that will undo what you thought you had built. And that is not failure, it is the next layer of the same work. Because the field is not mastered all at once, it is known progressively. It is tuned with your whole life. Every conflict you have is information from the field. Every relationship that repeats itself in the wrong pattern is the field telling you what you still haven't integrated. Every time you self-sabotage at the precise moment when something good was about to gel, it is one of the rooms of the house asking for light. Listen to it all, not as a punishment, as a compass. There is something that the oldest texts that have dealt with this, the ones that do not circulate in conventional bookstores, the ones that survived in manuscript copies, in oral traditions, in schools that taught without advertising themselves, all those texts and those traditions agree on a point that modernity has distorted almost to the point of making it unrecognizable. The field is not a tool. The field is what you are. You do not have it. You are it. And that difference changes everything. Because if the field is what you have, then you work on it as if it were an external object to be adjusted. And if the field is what you are, then working on it means knowing yourself with a depth that most people never reach, because it requires going to places that are uncomfortable, dark, damp, full of dust and things you would prefer not to see. But by seeing them, by naming them, by recognizing them as yours without drama and without shame, they release an energy that had been trapped for decades in the pattern of avoidance. That released energy is the field expanding. There is no external source. The source is you every time you reclaim yourself through honesty, every time you stop acting out of fear even though the fear is there, every time you speak the truth that is hard to say, every time you do not betray yourself even though betrayal would be more comfortable in that moment. Each of those acts is an act of the field, an act of coherence that reinforces the signal, that makes the antenna sharper, that turns your presence into something the world cannot ignore even if it wants to. And we come to the end of this journey, not the end of the work that never ends, the end of the map that today we can travel together. But before you go, I need to look directly at you, not at the viewer in general, at you who have been feeling for a while that there is something in you that hasn't found where to deploy itself. That functions, yes, that delivers, that responds, that keeps going, but deep down carries an unanswered question that grows louder in moments of silence. You who have made it this far when 90% of people would have closed the tab 15 minutes ago. That is not accidental. That is your field responding to something it recognizes. What you have heard today is only the entrance, the door, the threshold. Crossing it truly, not as a listener but as a practitioner, requires more layers. It requires work that cannot be done in a single video. There is a space where what I have barely been able to sketch here, I break down without filters or limits, where those who are already inside are rebuilding their fields with tools that do not circulate through the usual channels. where the conversation is among people who no longer want half-truths. The link is in the description. It is not for everyone. It is for the one who already knows that what they have heard today is not content but a calling. Like this video, not as an automatic gesture but as an affirmation that something in you has already moved. Every like is a candle that the algorithm reads as a sign that this must reach more people who need it and don't know where to find it. Leave a comment. You don't have to write an essay. A single word of what this video has stirred in you is enough. That word is a public declaration that you are no longer satisfied with living in the living room of your own house. Share the video. There is someone in your life, perhaps one, perhaps two, who have been at the threshold for a long time without finding the door. You are the sign that will lead them to it. And turn on the bell. It is not a technical detail, it is a thread. Each notification that reaches your screen from this channel in the coming days may coincide with exactly the moment you need it. The unconscious registers symbolic acts. What you do right now with this video, the attention you dedicate to it or the attention you deny it, forms part of the same field you have been learning to handle. Coherence begins in the details. And this is what I know, that there is something in you that is older than your name, deeper than your fears, more silent than all the noises you have learned to manage. Something that emits non-stop even if you don't listen to it. Something that knows exactly what the next step is, even if the mind hasn't finished processing it yet. That something is your field in its pure state. Learn to listen to it. Learn to tune it. Learn to inhabit every single room of the house without exception. And what the world will see in you then will have no name in ordinary language, but you will recognize it because it was always there, waiting for you.